And I ain't never been a robber, I've never been a thief, but I always been a drug dealer because I felt like that was the only way I knew how to survive. But when I actually closed that chapter in my life, I said I'd never go back no matter how many struggles I have to go through. Because when you see people in the streets nowadays, the streets ain't the same, man. People ain't built the same, people ain't living the same, people ain't got the same loyalty and respect for each other in the streets. Nowadays, when you sitting there and you thinking about hustling in the streets, is one thing you need to realize that technology and your friends is your worst enemy. Technology and your friends and family be the one that set you up and send you to prison. I put you in the graveyard quicker than any other person that you just meet on the street. I tell people every day that you gotta learn and live, but you gotta live to learn, man. That's what you can't. That's why I say if you ain't lived long enough, you can't tell a story about life. If you ain't been through struggles in life, you can't talk about the struggles that you ain't been through in life. But when you've been through struggles such as I have, I've been through situations where I had to actually become an adult way before the age of an adult would be like. It was times at 8, 9, 10 years old that I had to wake up in the morning and figure out what I was going to eat and how I was going to get it. And it was because I had a parent that didn't care nothing about me but cared more about drugs than they cared about me. And I told myself, as all the struggles I went through as a child, I used to look at my parents and I used to say, if I ever become a parent, I'm going to be a better parent. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure my children don't go through the struggles and pains that I went through. I'm gonna make sure that my children don't never go to bed hungry and go to bed early just to wake up and go to school so they can get a school breakfast, man. And I've done that, man. And I've done a lot of things in life that I felt like it was wrong. Like I've sold drugs. I've sold drugs. And at a point in life, you realize that when you see it, that it affects, and you start thinking about your life. As a child, I see people come on my house and take the TV out the living room because my mama owed them for dope. I'll watch that. I'll watch children go. I watch me go hungry, my little brother go hungry, and it was because of drugs. And when I started thinking about the situation in life that I was in them streets, I said I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to contribute to now individual putting money in my pocket but taking food off somebody's child's table. And I know that no matter what happens in life, if I was to not sell that person, somebody else gonna sell it. But when you get to a point in life where you realize that you gotta make yourself whole with God, whole with the world, you realize that you don't want to be any parts of any chaos. Any chaos. You don't want to be a story that someone one day tell about the things that you brought into their life. You don't want to say, well, that motherfucker there with the drug dealer, he's the one he's the one that used to do this and do that. You get to the point where you realize that you want to be a great person. You want to leave a legacy for your children that they can be proud of. You don't want your sons or your daughters to be what you would call a street legend where everyone talking about the crime, the dumb shit you done in life. You want to be one of the individuals that people read about, people talk about. I want to turn my struggle into someone's great story. I want to tell everyone about the things that I went through in life and still going through it and I'm growing. If you never get too old to learn something new and you never ever, never question your thoughts when you say you want to change your life. When you change your life, you change your life for a reason. When you distance yourself from people in your life, it's a reason why. When people eliminate themselves out of your life, sometimes it's for a good thing. Sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's hurtful, but sometimes you have to go through them struggles to make sure that, you're capable of dealing with yourself. You know, a lot of people in life don't understand that life is meant to be hard. Life is meant to be a struggle. Life is one of them things that when you break it down into like a puzzle, you walk through life as a child, you go through the things you go through, and it makes you a better adult, it makes you smarter. Every day that you go through, everything you go through in life is teaching you something that you didn't know yesterday. Every interaction that you have with another human being, is another interaction that you have with an individual, and you learn something different from another person. I was always taught that even if you're into a food, sometimes a food will tell you something to save your life. Because listening to an idiot or a fool will show you what you don't do to put yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. And a lot of people don't understand that when you out in this world creating chaos, eventually chaos comes back to your front door. And a lot of people don't understand that the violence that we have going in America right now is unacceptable. Unacceptable. You know what I mean? Because ain't no way that people should be able not be able to go to downtown areas and spend their money and go to restaurants and enjoy their time without worrying about coming out and robbed in front of the restaurant. I was reading a story yesterday about 901 Celebration Day, a celebration of Memphis, and they threw a party like a festival in Memphis of 901 Day. And one of the people that was hosting the event was on TV and he was talking about the event. And that man said from the start of that event, he said he could see people gathering and fighting in crowds in the daytime. He said as time went on, he said the event didn't end till like 8, 9 o'clock. He said he packed his equipment up and everything and shut everything down around about 5. He said because he could see the Pooh Ass kids coming out and he could see the backpacks coming out, and he already knew the writing on the wall. He said all of a sudden he seen crowds of kids and crowds of adults fighting, fighting, fighting. He said seconds later it wasn't nothing but pop, 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 pop. And this man said, I'm from Memphis, born in Memphis, been in Memphis for 40 some years. And that man said that I don't live in Memphis anymore. That man said that he came to try to celebrate the date of Memphis and almost lost his life. And he said he'd never go back to Memphis. And he was born in Memphis and lived in Memphis all his life. There's a lot of people that don't understand the real crime that's going on in the world. If you live in these cities, if you live in these neighborhoods, you see it firsthand. The robberies, the kidnapping, the carjacking, the shootings. But the world's not seeing that because a lot of these news stations is not telling the whole truth. A lot of these news stations are sponsored by these bars and these restaurants and these event people, and they don't want to shine the light on that. You don't want to come to Nashville because Nashville is number 8 on the highest crime rate cities in the United States. You don't want to go to Memphis because Memphis is number 1 when it comes to violent crimes, rapes, and robberies in the United States. You don't want to go to Chicago and go to the Cubs Stadium, even if they go into the World Series, because guess what? Chicago got the highest murder rate and that motherfucker climbing every second of every day. It's a lot of these news stations that pick and choose what they want to put on the news because they get paid not to show you the truth, man. Because if people know that it is so much crime going on in certain cities and places, them folks ain't gonna fly there, them folks ain't gonna go there, them folks ain't gonna go spend no money there. But when I started my platform with the intention to show that it was a lot of things that people are not seeing in this world that's not on the news or not on the internet. I started researching and listening to other stations, other cities, small, big, it didn't matter. And I started reporting their news, and it made people say that them folks matter too. You shouldn't always just hear about California news or Florida news. You should be able to hear about your local news, man. You know, because a lot of people be like, I didn't that story you just told, that's on my street. I was at work and I didn't even know nobody got killed. Them folks live on the street and they local news didn't even tell them that somebody got killed on their street. Because they live close to downtown and them folks didn't want to glorify that shit. Them folks did not want to show the world that them folks had more violence in their streets. That's why all these people coming to Nashville, because they don't label Nashville the bridal capital of the United States. Where all these brides and soon to be brides fly from all around the United States and come to Nashville and go downtown. But did them folks really know that they got a high crime rate in Nashville? Did them folks know that they got serial rapists running around in downtown Nashville? Did them folks hear about the stories of the Uber drivers and the people that acting like the Uber drivers picking up drunk drivers or picking up drunk people in downtown Nashville? No, they ain't heard about it. Because ain't nobody talking about that because they don't want you to not come spend no money, so they not gonna tell you the truth. A lot of people when they travel, they find these Airbnbs and don't know that these Airbnbs are in dangerous neighborhoods. Because when you read the reviews and they say, oh, it was nice and it was calm and it was peaceful, and then you get that Airbnb and you go in that motherfucker and you from a hood and you pick up on the sign that you in the ghetto in the middle of the gun violence, then you realize that you ain't taking no trip to no peaceful place. You ain't gonna get no rest. You know what I mean? I be seeing people like, I'm from Nashville, from North Nashville, and I be seeing people of all colors that I know that didn't grow up or wasn't raised in that neighborhood all day when I be out there. And I be sitting back and I be watching these people walk these dogs, white people, black people, Asian people, all people of nationalities, but they walking right through the heart of the ghetto. They walking right down the street where the same motherfuckers been selling pussy for 40 years, the same people. Same people been selling drugs for 40 years, same people. Same people playing shoot 'em up bang bang games, and now you got another generation of them same people that they kids still live in them neighborhoods that they grandmamas and great grandmamas didn't sell their houses. And these folks on came in through these condos up and these buildings up, right in the middle of war zone. War zone. Right in the middle of a war zone, and people don't even understand unless you live it. That's like when people be telling me about restaurants in Nashville. Tell me that's the best food I ever had, and I be like, man, I don't eat that 1,000 times. This shit garbage. You know what I mean? If you don't talk to a person from a city, you can't find out the truth about that city. You know, I tell you this, like, St. Louis is on one. They number 5. St. Louis, Missouri is number 5 in one of the most violent cities in America. They on that list. And a lot of people be like, well, it seems to me that the Republicans are targeting nothing but black cities and black states, and they targeting all Democratic states. No, man. Them folks watching what I'm watching. I'm a black man. I'm watching these fucking people of color kill each other every day in Chicago, in Memphis, in St. Louis, in Atlanta, in Georgia, in Mississippi, in Arkansas. I'm watching these black individuals take more lives than any other hate group ever done in history. I'm watching young folks carjack and rob and take lives of people that didn't do nothing but try to go to work, man. So if you ain't gonna tell the truth, don't talk about it, man. If you ain't gonna point out that the problem is the young motherfuckers, then you don't need to be talking about it. Don't get on this motherfucker trying to protest, walk up and down the street, talking about they ain't they overreaching, they doing too much, and they send a National Guard army in, and that's too much, and this is too much. It ain't never too much when it comes to saving an innocent person's life from fucking violence and nutting ass motherfuckers. It ain't never too much to say that somebody's grandmama or somebody's mama or somebody's child that wasn't doing anything wrong didn't deserve what happened to them, man. So if them folk had to land the motherfucking 747 in the middle of the motherfucking projects and walk around with motherfucking AR-15s 24/7 until they get every last one of them young motherfuckers up off the street, then they need to do it, man. I don't give a fuck how many of them young motherfuckers them folk put in a bag, because them young motherfuckers is the problem. And every motherfucker in the world that sit back and come up with these bullshit ass excuses and say, well, we can do this and we can do that, then you motherfuckers are delusional, man. You folks don't lost y'all mind to think that you can go out of here and talk to these young motherfuckers that's already walking around thinking that they shit don't stink and they ain't gonna never suffer no consequences. They about to learn the hard motherfucking way, man. And if you ain't taught your child anything in life, you better teach them folks right now. Them National Guard armies is pulling up in y'all cities, in y'all states. You better teach them young motherfuckers that they better grab a book and start reading and take their Pooh Shiesty mask and throw that motherfucker in the trash, man. You better tell them motherfuckers to take their backpack off their back, because somebody gonna wrap their ass up and put them in another kind of backpack, man. Y'all folks in the world, I sit back and I just be like, man, I don't understand how people gonna say that these folks are doing this and they targeting these people, they targeting us and they targeting us, and you know what I mean? How the fuck are they targeting the motherfucker when I see what they see? I see what they see. If I was in the position of a president or in the position of a governor or the position of a fucking colonel in an army, you know what I'd be targeting right now? I'll be targeting every motherfucking ghetto and project in the United States, because I know that's where the problem is. I'll get a motherfucking wrecking ball and go out there and knock down every motherfucking project in the United States and start all fucking over, man. I'll make somebody get up off the couch and realize that life ain't sweet, bitch. You ain't gonna get to live for free. Your children ain't gonna get to keep running around out here terrorizing motherfuckers without no consequences, and somebody put them in a bag. Y'all motherfuckers keep thinking that people, ain't nobody that's black standing behind when it comes to people saying this shit ain't right, man. It ain't right. You know what I mean? It ain't right that people out here losing their motherfucking life. It ain't right that motherfuckers gotta fear waking up in the morning and going to fucking work and worry about when they riding down the street, are they going to a store to get a drink and get some gas, that the young dumb motherfuckers that's sitting outside with a ski mask on might try them when they come outside. And it ain't just no hood store. Motherfuckers that's going to Publix, Walmarts. It ain't safe out here no motherfucking more, man. It ain't safe unless you stay dangerous and be ready to bury a motherfucker before they bury you, man. Them the only motherfucking choices that anybody will have right now. If you want to live to see another day, you gotta stay dangerous. And any motherfucking way, man, if these folks need to bring the Guard Army in, bring the Marines in, if they need to bring the motherfucking the SS George Washington tanker and park that motherfucker in the middle of the Columbian River and let the motherfucking sailors jump off and run around in the cities, they need to do whatever the fuck they need to do to stop people from getting killed. Nothing, man. Ain't no way that in Chicago or any motherfucking place on this United States that 60 people should be shot and 15 people lose their life in 48 hours. That's like some war. That's like some overseas war data from a day, son. That's some shit that people report about casualties in war. 50 people died, 60 people shot, 80 people died. That ain't no shit that we should be talking about that's running around in America. That ain't that type of shit, man. That is not what we should be talking about in America. We shouldn't be running around in America talking about in a daily, because if you talking about 60 people got shot in one city, I'm gonna give you statistics in other cities happened over the weekend. You had 26 people get shot in Memphis. You had 32 people get shot in St. Louis. You had 42 people get shot in Houston, Texas, man. You had 15 people get shot in Nashville. You had, oh, this is just the Labor Day weekend, man. This is just the Labor Day weekend. In Georgia, 36 people were shot and 8 people killed over the Labor Day weekend. So when y'all folks talking about what the fuck need to be done, anything that's possible to stop these young mothers from killing another person. If them folk gotta drop the National Guard Army in the middle of the motherfucking hood, then that's what they need to do, man. Because for every motherfucker that's out here talking about we don't need this and we don't need that and do that, it's a billion people hollering out, let's go. Let's go. You got people in Memphis that been in Memphis for 50 years, that been doing what they should do to pay off their home, going on the internet talking about I'm scared to go outside. I'm 60-some years old and I worked my whole life and now I can't even go outside no more. Them folks on the internet begging the world for somebody and hoping that their video go viral, and the right motherfucker catch that video and say, we sending help, don't worry about it, we got you. Don't worry about it, we gonna send help. And you know, like in Chicago, man, you had that mayor that he's gonna go down in history as the dumbest motherfucker in the world. Brandon Johnson, dude gonna go down in history as the dumbest individual that you ever seen on this earth. Because dude went online days and days trying to stop the National Guard Army from coming to Chicago and talking about, well, we ain't got no real bad crime rate, it's down. And then hours after that motherfucker made that statement, them folks pushed the gas pedal. Them folks said, shut up, motherfucker. You don't run nothing. And them folks start shooting motherfuckers left and right, left and right, left and right. They start killing folks. They showed the dude is telling a motherfucking lie. And that's what it's like these young motherfuckers sitting back, and when they see the mayor go on TV and try to say that they ain't got no crime problem, them young motherfuckers get together and say, let's amp it up. Let's amp it up. It's like them young motherfuckers go, and then they go wild. And them folks start having shootings every second of that day, and it makes the whole motherfucking network, the news, go harder. Because that's the trend, man. That's the trend. People, you know, right now, every news station, and I was one of the first ones that was talking about the violence in Chicago, talking about the individuals in Chicago that needed help. I was talking about the bullshit that was going on in Memphis. I was talking about things that people wasn't talking about because they said black folks shouldn't talk about other black folks' problems. Shit. I'm going to talk about every motherfucking problems, and I'm going to try to help motherfuckers solve them problems, man. Because every motherfucker in the world don't want to wake up and live in chaos and live in a society where it's straight violence every fucking day, man. Everybody don't want to wake up and live like they living in a motherfucking Scarface movie, walking around with guns and shit like that, and can't go here and can't do that and can't do that without worrying about it, and put a motherfucker in a bag, man. Everybody ain't doing that, man. Everybody don't want to live their life like that, man. And I'm telling you, man, I was sitting there and I was watching the news, and what people don't understand, the National Guard is already in Chicago. The National Guard Army is already in Memphis. The National Guard Army is already in St. Louis. What people don't understand is when these folks showed you the list of the most violent cities, that gave you a map of where they're going to start off at. That gave you a whole map of where them folks were going to start off at. And then as days got closer and they were so scared that people were gonna leak it to the world, even though people been watching Humvees and army tanks go up and down the roads and on the train tracks for the last months, but they wasn't paying attention that them folk was already setting up their command post in the cities now. A lot of people didn't even watch that these folk were building what you would call detention centers, and they call them alligator Alcatraz prisons. And these folks started building every state. People was driving down the interstate and looking over in a field and saying, man, it looked like they building a big warehouse. Them folk was building a detention center. Them folk was building a detention center in every state to house all the domestic terrorists. That when you say that the world is supposed to be, the Constitution says that the Army is meant to defend the American citizens against foreign and domestic terrorists. Foreign terrorists are people from other countries in other situations, but domestic terrorists are individuals that were born in America, live in America, but going against America as citizens. So what these folks went in a chamber and done was they sit down and they characterize gang members, drug dealers, and people that's commit violence as domestic terrorists. People never understood that these folks put the label on what it is called. All the people that been on the internet putting up gang signs, talking about I'm this, I'm that, you folks already labeled as domestic terrorists. And when these folks come to these cities, and they come to these cities, and they come and when they